a little car. We're getting ready to change the clutch in. Out in this weather. I didn't count on it being like this when I ordered my parts, but really don't have any choice. Snow on the hood. So it's a little Hyundai Accent 2000. I'm going to be changing the clutch out. It threw the clutch out last August, so got a lot of work to do here. So this is the start of the project. Alright, one of the first things we're going to have to do here on our clutch project is we've got to get some stuff off the engine so we can get down to the transmission and everything. Got to take this air breather air system off of the car. It's taking up a lot of space. Transmission's down in here. So that's all got to come off. Excuse me. The battery has to come out. And I believe one diagram told me I need to take out the radiator, and the fan, to get it out of the way so it's not damaged. And then I believe we'll have to take the wheels off and the skirts and stuff where I can get down into the transmission to pull it off the motor. The motor's got to come loose from the motor mounts and jacked up a little. So it ought to be a fun project doing it outside in the snow. So anyway, that's where we got to start by getting this off. I've got to figure out what size sockets and wrenches I need to get all this off. Alright, before I take anything off, I want to make sure I make note of where everything's going. We got this hose right here. It goes right there. I'll be taking this clamp off and all this right here and this and the battery out too. But we also need to make note of this. These things break. They're pretty fragile after a few years. They get brittle. Anyway, those are the two things I need to make note of right now. Popping all these clips off right here, they're rusty too. So anyway, down here, there's another one there. We're gonna be taking this unit off. So that's the next step. Alright, I've taken the filter out, taken the top piece off of the air breather unit there, taking it off of the throttle body. There's the lower part of it. It's pretty dirty in there. Yeah, there's the filter. I just wrapped it up. I may have to replace that. Anyway, there's the top part of that filter apparatus out. Alright, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a bolt, probably a 10 to 12 millimeter, that has to come out to get the lower part of this air breathing apparatus out. There's one down in here too, but it's already out. At some point somebody's taken that out and never replaced it, or it's stripped out or something. Anyway, that's kind of what's holding this bottom in, except this hose right there. It'll have to come off, and then I'll work on getting that unit out. Alright, I got the air intake system off that holds the air filter, and so it leaves a pretty big gap there. I've still got to take this off and get it out of the way, but that's no big. I think it's just held on by these two bolts. We'll get that out of there here in a minute. But as you can see, I'm in the middle of like a snowstorm here. So my work may be limited today. Anyway, I've got this far, and we're starting to see the transmission now. There's the clutch linkage. And so it's a little bit cold today. It's supposed to be a little warmer tomorrow. I may get more done tomorrow, so we'll see. But there you have it. the too bad I couldn't video it while I was actually taking it out, but it's no big deal. There's you can find diagrams to take it out. There's just 2 to 3 bolts holding that in, and a hose clamps it there. I have put a rag in the end of the throttle body there to keep junk out. All the mice getting in there. Well, I don't know. I think mice are in hibernation. So anyway, that's where we're at today. All right, we're getting ready to take the rest of this air breathing unit out for the air filter and all that stuff. I've got most of it out, as you can see. The empty space there goes to the throttle body. Got to get the battery out and a few more things. But we have a problem that is going to require more than just replacing the clutch. The problem lies in that we have no shifting pattern. It will not go into any kind of gear. And if you see here, this just moves. So we've got something broke down in the transmission itself. So it doesn't go into any kind of gear. So we're going to have to figure out what's broken in there. So that means I'm going to have to actually split the transmission apart probably and figure out what's going on in there. So that might make the job just a bit more costly. Still going to have to replace the clutch and pressure plate, throw-out bearing and all that. But today we're getting ready to start on this here. If I can get these bolts out. These bolts were really rusty. I sprayed them down. That's why I don't have it out yet. Sprayed them down with WD-40 to see if it loosened them up a little bit. So that's where we're going to start today. So there you have it. Okay, I've got the rest of that air breathing apparatus piece out. Got the battery out. I had to mark the cables because they all go down into one wiring harness there. I couldn't plainly tell which one was which. Sometimes you have a red and black, but these are both black and can't really tell. I really need to replace the battery cable, whatever you want to call them, hookups, ends. They're pretty nasty. So I might replace those before I put it all back together. Terminals is the word I'm looking for. Okay, but there you go. You can start to see more of the transmission there. That's going to have to come out, but I've got a lot more to take out of here. I think I might go ahead and take the radiator out. I'm going to have to drain the radiator, so I'm going to find a place to drain it here. I've moved the car back so that if I get a bunch of stuff on the ground, I won't be laying in it when I go to get underneath it. So once I get everything off of it that I need to and drained, I'll push the car back up so I can work on it. So there you have that. Here's I may have to end up taking that off. I'm not sure. That's your clutch reservoir and slave cylinder, I suppose that's what they call it. I'm not sure exactly, but I think that's what they call it. I'm not sure what they call it on this, but I've had to replace those before on other cars. So I probably have to end up taking this battery tray out and get it up out of the way. That would give me just a little bit more room in there. So. Okay, according to my manual, we need to remove this switch here, backup lamp switch. It activates the backup lamps, I guess. And we have to remove the clutch release mounting bolts, which, if you can see this piece right here, it's kind of hard to see. There's some bolts up in there that I have to remove. And there's only a couple. And evidently that loosens that piece. Then there's some cotter pins I've got to take out. I think right there. which is the shift cable. And then I have to remove the cotter pin for the selector cable, which is down in here. I don't know if you can see it or not. You can barely see that down in there. I have to remove that one. So that's my next job here. Notice I'm marking everything with some blue painter's tape. That way I just know where everything goes back and know what it's labeled. So I'll have to label what I can. So it's always a good idea to do that. Alright, I've removed the linkage. As you can see there. There's also some terrible nasty clips that clipped them in that I had to get out too, just to get the cables completely loose. Now we're getting ready to take out the speedometer cable, which I think is right there, that bolt. If you can see the flashlight run up the cable, that's the speedometer cable, I believe. It's got to come out. So I had to take the linkage off, and I had to take this the clutch unit off here. It's just hanging there. It's still on, but it's not connected to the bell housing anymore. So that's all off. Next thing I'm going to do is try to get this speedometer cable out right here. So it's a pretty big job, and you know, this car's a 2000, so everything is really rusty on it. So I've been spraying some WD-40 on all the bolts and letting them set for a while. So anyway, if you ever do this job, you'll have to spray your bolts if you got an old car, just to help them break loose. I already broke one socket, 12 millimeter, trying to get that clutch assembly off there. It was really tight, so had to end up getting a bigger drive socket, thicker walled, and it popped right out. So got that going. Alright, as you can see, I've got the speedometer cable out of there. I'm going to put something over that just so it doesn't get stuff down in it. But I've also moved the speedometer cable up here out of the way. You can see it right there. I just kind of moved it up out of the way. I'll have to remember that because it'd be easy to miss. But anyway, I've got to put that back down. Or it just screwed off there. I didn't have to take that nut off there. Well, I actually did, and then I put it back on. But anyway, yeah, there it just unscrews like a big cap and just pulls straight out. So it shouldn't be too hard to get back in there. Anyway, that's the speedometer cable. So glad that job's done. Kind of hard to get down in there to it. All right, here we're inside the car, and evidently I've got to get this taken off here. This they said it's a U-joint up in here, but I'm not quite sure how it all goes together. I'll have to investigate. It's got to come off anyway. I'm not sure why, but they have us taking it off. The instructions does. So we'll see what happens and see why I have to actually take it off. So we'll do a little investigation before we do it, though. I'm going to try to video this. This is going to be kind of tough because we're getting down in here the starter. The starter is clear in the back of this engine, down low. It's really hard to get to. I think that you might be able to get to it better underneath, but the electrical connections, I kind of wanted to see if I couldn't video that. I'm going to kind of get down in here and kind of see if I can see it. I don't know if I'm hitting it or not for sure. down in here. Hopefully I can video that. There's a couple wires, one I've taken off, and then there's another one held on by a nut that I've got to take off the starter. I think that's it, but I can't tell for sure. Anyway, I've got to take his starter out. Bolts are on the other side. I think there's 2 bolts holding it in through the bell housing of the transmission. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I wanted to video this right here to see if I couldn't get it. So I believe that should be it right there. So, okay, come up on out here. Anyway, after trying to get this battery plate out, it's not going to come out. The bolts are rusted. I would have to drill them out, and after further review, I don't think I'm really going to need to take it out anyway. I don't think it's going to be in the way. So because there's a metal piece underneath it that you can't get rid of, and it's almost as big as the plastic plate, so we're just going to leave that in there. We're going to skip a step. In the instructions they had a step taking the U-joint out of the steering column. I'm not sure why that is, but other than it's connected to all your drivetrain down here, and it might get in the way when you go to taking something off. But anyway, I want to skip that step, and then also had us undoing the return hose to the power steering reservoir, and I'm not going to break that system either, because then I'm going to get air in it, and it'll just be a mess. So I'm not going to break that. I called my father-in-law, and he's had this out before, and said that you didn't have to do that. So we're skipping those 2 steps, and hopefully it won't come back to bite me. But anyway, down in here, I don't know if we can see it or not. Yeah, right there in the center of the screen is the top bolt to the starter. Then there's one underneath the linkage here. Clear down underneath. There's another starter bolt, and we'll have to get those out. It'll be kind of tough, but got to get the starter out of it. So there you have it. Okay, I wanted to do a little bit more video in here because I've actually got the starter out of it now. It's a pretty tough job to get that out. But anyway, I've labeled these. This actually bolts where the it bolts up with the mounting bolt to the lower starter bolt, and then this, of course, right here is your positive terminal, and then this also, I mean, it goes right beside it, so on the starter itself. So but anyway, if you can see down in here, that's where the starter was, back in there, clear in the back of the engine. Really hard to get to. Hardly any room for sockets. I had to actually take the bottom bolt off. I loosened it with a ratchet, a 3/8 drive ratchet. It's a 14 millimeter socket. I was able to loosen it with that, but I couldn't take the bolt all the way out because it's a real long bolt, and there's just not enough room in between things to get to it, because you end up, I don't know if you can see that, right there's where the bolt went. Okay, and well, you can't hardly see it. Anyway, you get your socket and ratchet stuck in between the two when the bolt comes out too far, so you have to end up actually using a 14 millimeter open end wrench and almost kind of blindly loosening it just a little bit at a time. Took quite a while to get it out. So the starter's not an easy thing to change in these. Anyway, I got her taken out. I don't really need to buy a new starter. The starter's okay. I just need to get it out of the way because it's bolted to the bell housing of the transmission. So it's just one of the things that had to go. So anyway, I've got that out. Labeled my wires. Again, you really probably better label stuff if you're not sure where they go back. That's kind of a foolproof way. It may be a while before I get this thing back together. Could be a couple months even. So I might forget where those go eventually. Good idea to label anything that you think you won't remember. So that's that.